If you love Maybelline as much as I do, but you're curious if this deserves a place in your collection or not, that's the question I'm going to try to help you answer today. I have several Maybelline complexion products that I absolutely love. So when they launched their new Lifter foundation and concealer, I had one question. Is it actually better? Or is it just new? My hope with this video is that it will help you decide if it's something that you want to spend your money on or not. And in order to help you make that decision, this is not a first impressions video. I have been testing this foundation for a couple of weeks, and I put it head to head on separate days with these three foundations, using one of these on one side of my face and this on the other, doing all-day wear tests. And as a bonus, I also tested the Lifter concealer. I've taken notes on both the foundation and the concealer, and I'm going to be doing shade swatches. The first two are the Lift and Plump in shades 112 and 115. Then we have the Lumi Matte and the 24-Hour Skin Tint, both in shade 112. Finally, the Fit Me Matte and Poreless in 112, 115, and 120. This is the Lumi Matte Foundation and the Skin Tint. These are probably the best shades on me. You can see that the 115 is way too warm. This is the 112, and it actually works really well. The 120, way too dark, and then I mix these two to get the right shade, the 112 and the 115. I think you can see the Lifter is a brighter color, but it's still a cool tone shade. These two are really nice cool tone shades on my complexion, and then this one's a little warm, this one's too light, but when I mix them, they work pretty well. Oh, and stick around to the end because I'm going to rank all four foundations and all four concealers and let you know which one I think outperformed all of the others. Before you can take any of this information and apply it to yourself, you need to know something about me. I am 60 years old, so I have mature skin. It is pretty much combo oily, which means that it's oily in the T-zone and kind of normal everywhere else. I do sometimes get some dry patches. I have one right now on my cheek right here and up on my forehead. So even if your skin isn't exactly like mine, you can still use that information, because if you're super dry and I love something, it might be too drying for you. On the other hand, if something is too glowy and dewy for me and you're dry, it might be perfect for you. All right, with all that out of the way, let me tell you how I did my test. For each day that you're going to see, the Maybelline Lifter foundation is on the left side of my face, and the foundation I'm testing it against will be on the right side of my face. The Maybelline Lifter concealer is always on under my left eye, and the testing concealer is under the right eye. Today, I have this on my whole face because I didn't want to introduce too many variables. And I'm going to say right off the bat that I think this foundation looks beautiful on my skin. And if it were the only Maybelline foundation I owned, I would absolutely be thrilled with it. I am thrilled with it. The question, however, isn't just, is it a good foundation? It's, is it better than the foundations I already have? Also, if you're new here, I have had a dry patch under this eye. It is healing. It is doing so much better. But that's another reason I wanted to put this concealer under both eyes, because throughout the test, it's a little unfair because this eye definitely had more to cover than the other eye did. In order to minimize as many variables as possible, I did the exact same thing on my face every single day that I was testing. I did not use a primer. I wanted to see how this foundation held up all by itself, except for the Wet n Wild Hydra Depuffer under my eyes, and I used that under both eyes. I then applied the foundation with a brush and blended it with a dampened beauty sponge. I then set my face with the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Translucent Setting Powder. I did not set the concealer. I used the Flower Beauty Heat Wave Bronzer for bronzing and also on my eyes for eyeshadow. And then I used the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Blush in C34 Tender Rose. The only difference I made was some days I used the Wet n Wild Brulee and did a matte look, and other days I did just a light shimmer. I then set my face with the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Peptide plus Niacinamide Lock-In Setting Spray. And all of it will be listed and linked down in the description box below. Some of those are affiliate links. If you shop through them, it helps support my channel and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So I thank you if you do that. On day one, the Lift and Plump, as I said, was on this side, and I put it head to head with the 30-Hour Superstay Lumi Matte Foundation on the right-hand side. So the Lift and Plump, as I was putting this on with a brush, I noticed that it was a little clingy above my upper lip. Otherwise, it was smooth, gave me good coverage without needing to be built up. I did have a little bit of polka dotting in my pores on my cheek, And then I decided to wipe it off on that clingy spot on my upper lip, and I reapplied it with the damp sponge, and it went on much better over that dry patch. I have mentioned this before, but if you have dry patches on your face and you're applying your foundation with a brush, the brush can act as a little bit of an exfoliator and actually lift those dry flakes and make them more visible. Even if it's just on like a dry patch, if you use your sponge and apply it there like that, it's going to give you a little bit smoother coverage. On the 30-hour foundation, I thought that the shade was a little bit better. It was a little bit cooler, and I also felt that it blended in faster. And maybe I'm crazy, and it was very slight, but I thought that the pores looked just a little bit better on the Lumi Matte side than it did on the Lift and Plump side. Moving on to the concealer. The Lifter was on the left. It's a little bit of a drier and thicker formula, so don't wait to blend this in. I know sometimes you hear the advice of put your concealer on and let it sit for 30 seconds or so before you blend it in to get more coverage. Don't do that with this one. You'll find it hard to move around and blend in. I first used my finger, then a brush, and then a damp sponge on the edges only. This helps to remove too much coverage and reduce creasing. For every concealer I put under my eyes, I expect to have to go in when I'm finished with my makeup and tap out the little bit of extra that has moved around and gathered while I've been putting on my makeup. It's just something I do, and I don't knock a concealer for that unless it continues to crease after I do that step. I feel like the shade 25 on this Lifter concealer is actually a really good shade for me. So on that first day, I used the Maybelline Fit Me concealer on my right eye, and I have this in the shades 5 and 10, and I kind of need to use both. This is a much thinner consistency, and shade 10 is a little bit warmer, so as I said, I add shade 5 in to brighten it up a little bit. And here is the completed look in natural daylight. I think it turned out really pretty. Now, I did do a 5-hour check-in, and I'll show that to you here. Midday check-in here. It's been on about 5 hours, and if you remember, this was the Lift and Plump side. And this was the Lumi Matte side. What do you think? Which side do you think looks better? And then I came back at the end of the day, I believe it was 9 hours. Neither concealer had creased, but both had worn off on the inner portion of my eye. So I kind of just considered it a tie. For the foundation at the 9-hour check-in, I felt that the Lift and Plump had worn off a little bit more on my cheek. And because it wore off of the surface skin, it was revealing a little bit more of that polka dot effect when the foundation's in the pore but not on the skin. So there was just a little bit of that. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's terrible, but it was there. And in order to confirm it wasn't just like my bias that I felt like the 30-hour looked better, I asked my daughter. I did not tell her which foundations I was testing, which one was new, nothing. I just went to her and said, which side of my face looks better? And she confirmed that it was the 30-hour. So on day one, my winner was the 30-hour Lumi Matte. Moving on to day two, I put the Superstay 24-hour skin tint on the right side of my face. And you might think, well, it's not fair to test a skin tint against a foundation. Of course, it's not going to have as much coverage and it's not going to do as well. And that's not necessarily the case because I put these two to the test to see if there was much of a difference. That video is right here if you want to see the results. As you can see here in the application, the Lumi Matte looked pretty much the same. I did not have the polka dotting that I had the day before, so I don't know if I just applied it a little differently, if my skin was just behaving better. I don't know what the difference was, but it went on smoother this time, which honestly is the benefit of a multi-day wear test because things change. And one day it can look not great, and another day it can look amazing. Obviously, the consistency of the 24-hour skin tint is lighter, but I don't feel like I got less coverage. So that was interesting to me. The concealer on day two was the iconic Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Eraser Corrector in the shade 110. I have loved this concealer for a really, really long time. I know some people hate the little applicator up here because they think it's unhygienic or whatever, but I don't know how it's more unhygienic than a doe foot that you take out, swipe on your eyes, and shove back in the tube. Maybe because it's exposed to the air, but if you keep the cover on it, how is it different? I don't get it. But if you hate it, you can't just pull that thing off and then it just kind of comes out the top and you use your finger or a brush or whatever. Or you can take a brush and get it off of there and put it on your eye and never touch the sponge. All that to say, it doesn't bother me. The day 2 finished look in natural daylight. And again, at the midday check-in, both sides looked great. So this is the Lift and Plump side and the Skin Tint side. Can you tell a difference? Because I don't think I can. I didn't feel super matte. I didn't feel super dewy. Nothing felt oily. And at the 9-hour check-in, I thought they both looked nearly identical. I think I had a little wear off on my chin, but I was editing all day. And so when I edit, I sit like this a lot. So I'm thinking. And so, you know, the foundation on my chin ends up on my hand. What can I say? So day 2 was a tie. I honestly could not tell a difference in these two complexion products. Again, coming back at the end of the day, looking at it, neither one were creased and both of them were worn off on the inner portion of my eye. So another tie. And moving on to day 3. And by this point, was I getting tired of wearing the exact same makeup 3 days in a row? Yes. Yes, I was. Then the challenger for day 3 was the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless, and I have loved these for a long time. This foundation I was using before I discovered the YouTube beauty space in 2018. It wasn't this exact bottle. Don't worry. Again, this is one that I have multiple shades in because my winter shade is different than my summer shade, and sometimes I blend them to get the perfect shade, which is what I did this time. I have 115 and 112. It does not come with the pump. These pumps I got on Amazon, and I will link them down below if you want to add a pump to your Maybelline Fit Me foundation. I did get good coverage on the Maybelline Fit Me. I think perhaps my cheek area might have looked just a little smoother and more blurred. However, I did have polka dot pores on the Fit Me side on my nose. And of course, I had to mix 2 shades to get the right shades. And so on this day, at least on application, I think the Lift and Plump actually went on smoother and better than the Fit Me. These particular bottles, however, are getting some age on them, and that could have affected how they performed on this day. But again, the differences were very slight. And then my day 3 concealer was the Superstay Active Wear. This gives supposedly up to 30 hours of wear. I'm not wearing my makeup that long. It has a very light, serumy texture that blended easily and dried down quickly. I really enjoy how this goes on. And when I went to do that initial tap, tap, tap after my makeup was applied, this had 0 creasing needed to tap out. I was stunned. Like I said earlier, every concealer I put on, I plan to do that step. There wasn't anything there. So here's the completed makeup on day 3. I think I did an 8-hour check-in on that day. I mean, everything I think still looks really good. It's not creased. I don't have any complaints with it. This one, I feel like it's kind of emphasizing a little dryness right here and kind of over here. It's got some polka dot pores on my nose on the Fit Me side, but otherwise, I think it looks really, really, really similar. And I do feel that the Plump and Glow actually fared better than the Fit Me. Interestingly, this is billed as a plumping and glowing foundation, and I don't feel that this gives me an inordinate amount of glow. Normally, with my oily skin, I tend to avoid products that say hydrating, glowing, dewy, those sorts of things, because I get enough glow and dew on my own as my natural oils come through. And if I'm using something that's billed as dewy, I can cross over into disco ball territory pretty easily. This did not do that. So if you're worried about that glow aspect of this, I don't think you need to worry about that with this foundation. And then at the check-in, this had 0 creasing, none. You know, I think in some of the others I said there wasn't any creasing, but there might have been like, you know, one tiny little bit right under the lash line that you really couldn't see because the lashes cover it. This had 0 creasing and it was not worn off in that inner corner. The lifter had a tiny little crease right underneath the lash line and it was worn off on the inner corner. Okay, so now I'm going to rank these and let you know if the new product adds anything to my collection or not. So for the concealers, in 4th place, I think is the Maybelline Fit Me, primarily because I have to use 2 to get the right shade. And while there wasn't really any creasing at the end of the day, it did wear off in the inner corner. If I set that under eye, perhaps it would give it a little bit more longevity, but then that also makes my under eyes look drier. And so I've kind of gotten away from doing that. Number 4. So in 3rd place, the new Lifter concealer. Because it's so thick, it does do a good job covering darkness and that sort of thing. It gives a lot of pigmentation. But you also have to work very quickly to get it to blend. And it did have some creasing on some days, not every day, which I thought was weird. Maybe it was just because some days were warmer than others, or I moved my face more. I don't know. But it did always wear off in the inner portion of my eye. I'm probably not going to do a wear test today. And so I'll let you know in the description box or in the pinned comment how it wore today on this eye that doesn't have that extra dry patch on the inside. Maybe it'll do better on that more normal skin. I don't know. But third place. In second place is the Instant Age Rewind Eraser. I love the texture. I love the coverage. It did not crease at all, although it did wear off a little on that inner corner. So can't take top spot if you're wearing off after 8 or 9 hours of wear. The top spot went to the Superstay Activewear. I was surprised. This one is actually new to my collection. I got it in December and I knew that I liked it, but I wasn't really aware of how well it worked because I hadn't done a wear test with it or anything yet. But the fact that even after that first application, there was no creasing to tap out, and it didn't crease all day long, and it stayed on my inner corner. This might be my new favorite concealer. All right, foundations. Number 4 spot, again, the Fit Me. These are some of the oldest products in my collection that could have affected how they performed in the wear test. Maybe I should have gone out and bought a new bottle, but I didn't. So of the ones I tested, this one again came in last. For the top 3, we are getting so nitpicky because I really love all of them. And honestly, I've got a tie for second place. We're just skipping third place because I could not tell a difference between these two on my skin, either first applied or at the end of the day. They looked identical, which is just so strange to me because this is billed as a foundation and this is a skin tint. But this skin tint gives really good coverage and yet it's light on your face and it just lasts. So tied for number 2. And in the top spot was the Lumi Matte. I think it gave me the most blurred. I think it gave me the best coverage without feeling heavy. It never looked polka dotty. And I think it looked best at the end of the day. So this is my top 1. So what does all this mean for you? Well, I think what that means for foundations is if you already have one of these in your collection, I don't think you need to go out and buy this one unless you just want to. If you go out and buy this thinking it's going to do something amazing for you that these don't do, I think you're going to be disappointed. So if you don't have a Maybelline foundation and you want to go out and buy one, I would buy this one or this one. That said, do I think this is a bad foundation? Absolutely not. I think that it held up well. It never went shiny or greasy or felt tacky or anything like that on my skin. And so if this was the only Maybelline foundation in my collection, I would use it and love it. For the concealers, if you have either one of these and you love them, don't go out and buy this one. I don't think you'll like it. It's thicker, it's harder to blend, and it wore off before the day was over. If you want a Maybelline foundation, this one's my pick right here. So basically that was a long-winded, in-depth analysis to tell you that if you have other Maybelline foundations or concealers in your collection right now that you already love, you probably can save your money and not get this one. They're just not that different. And the reason I do this and do these comparisons is because you don't have to continually chase the holy grail. Because if you have something in your collection that's working great for you, these 2 foundations work great for me. And if I didn't have this channel, I probably wouldn't have gone out and bought these until one or both of these were gone. So if you've been contemplating purchasing the foundation or the concealer or both, but you already have Maybelline foundations and concealers in your collection that you love, maybe think about waiting until you use those up to try this out. It's fun to try new things, and that's great. But I really don't need 3 foundations in my inventory that do exactly the same thing. If you have a favorite Maybelline foundation and concealer, let me know down in the comments which one that is. I've done this head-to-head style video before, and if you enjoy that, I'll put a playlist of them right here so you can go check them out. Stay confident, stay curious, stay you. I'll see you in one of those or the next one. God bless. Bye-bye.